today for a real special treat. Today we have Tony Stewart as our Arizona drag racing legend. The real Tony Stewart, not that other guy that, the imposter Tony. This was smoke before smoke was smoke. Tony, good to have you here today.
Thank you. I'm proud to be here.
Tony's a longtime friend of mine and just has some great stories and passionate about cars. And was a fixture in Arizona drag racing and has been for a long time now. And we hope to see him out there racing again here sometime soon. Have you been back yet, or are you still working on it?
I've been back this year.
Good. Well, let's start at the beginning.
Yeah. I'm just getting my feet wet again.
As you can tell by his accent, he's not from here. So tell us about where you were born.
I was born in New York City, Flushing, New York. And I moved out to Arizona in 1973.
Well, let's go back up a little bit, okay? Let's get the dinosaur years out of the way first. So you grew up there, happy kid, enjoyed life, went to high school.
Yep.
When did you know cars were going to be a thing for you?
About 12 years old.
Tell us the story.
It was just, my father came home with a 1954 Ford in 1959, and I just got hooked. And I used to watch him all the time working on his car and all that, and that was it. I wanted to be an auto mechanic, and my father says, he says, auto mechanics are a dime a dozen. If you really want to be a mechanic, why don't you go to learn how to be an aircraft mechanic? So they had a public school, aviation high school, and I went to that school. I figured I'll make them happy, go to that school. Well, I got a much better education going to that school than I think I would have gotten automotive. And my dedication was always engines, and when I started to get later on in years and going and working I still playing around with cars. Me and my friend, when we were in high school, we would buy neighbors' old cars that wouldn't run anymore. And I lived up on the end of the street, and it was a vacant lot, and right alongside the garage is where me and George would tear those cars apart and put them back together again. And
when was your first time going to a drag strip?
I went to Islip Speedway in Long Island, and I had a 55 Ford that I built. This was my first race car, and I made one pass with the car and I destroyed it. And I had been away from it all that time. I bought a new Mustang and didn't do anything more with cars except just work on them.
So you were one and done for a while.
I was done for a while, and when we moved to Arizona.
So what brought that about? Your move to Arizona?
The weather was pretty bad back there, and it was getting pretty crowded. Hard to get a decent house. So me and a couple other guys, we were all married. We decided to come to Arizona, open up. We had a gas station in New York, and so we decided we were going to come to Arizona, and we're going to open up an auto shop. And in 6 months we'd be millionaires. Well, that didn't work out that way. We all went our separate ways, and I went to school to learn how to drive a truck, because I had my wife and just a newborn. And I had to have something to do to make some money. So I decided, let's go be a truck driver. So that's where I started. So all those years of driving, and then in the 80s, started getting back into cars again. And there's where I met Mick Goddard. I started racing out at Phoenix Dragway with the 61 Falcon, and that's where I got to. Mickey and them lived in the same neighborhood. He come around on his motorcycle one day and he introduced himself, and he's going, "You got a Ford?" like that. And then I got to meet him, Greg Shoup, Wes McGann, all those guys. And then I had a friend, Ernie Valenzuela, He worked for Pioneer Ford. And I knew him back in the 70s when I first came out. I was buying stuff from him. And he was into racing also. And he called me one day and he told me, he says, I've got this guy that's given up on a street project. He's got this 70 Maverick. He's got everything for it to put it together. He said he wants $1,000 for it. So I said, okay. I went home, talked to my wife, and I said, I won't take any money out of the household. I'll go out and get a loan against my car to get the money to buy the car, and I'll put it together and won't take nothing out of the household. If it doesn't work, then that's the end of it. So she says, okay. So we bought this Maverick and put it all together, and we were racing out at Phoenix Dragway. We started out with a car run 1290s. And then Ernie, I had this tunnel ram manifold, and it was a dual quad manifold. So I put two 500 Hollies on it. And we ran that car a couple of times. And then he came up with this Torker wine intake. And he said, here, put this on the car. So I put that on, run 1260s. And so we were getting our experience out at Phoenix. And I remember guys like Lester Goff, Rocky, Dave Irwin and his buddy, the guy had the Camaro.
Terry Marshall.
Yeah, Terry Marshall. They'd all be waiting for me. It'd be end of staging for me to come in, and they were choosing who's going to get me first and second round. And I'd be gone by first or second round. And then Mickey, he was the one that really, taught me the ropes and what to do on a starting line. And all of a sudden, I started getting it. And Donnelly had a race on Memorial Day weekend in 1982. And I got a quarterfinals and won $75.
Big money.
And they were running the Winslow races up there on the big holidays. Mm-hmm. And so I called my wife and I said, I'm going to come home, let's load up the kids, and we'll go up to Winslow and race there for the weekend. And that's what we did. And I don't know what happened, but I was fortunate to win 3 in a row. So I came back with
they had a Friday race, Saturday race, and a Sunday race,
yep,
or whatever.
Yep. And come home with a total of about $600. So I went out, had the car leaded. I had spoke to you. You had just opened up the shop, the speed shop, and you were taking sponsors. And I went and asked you if you'd sponsor my car, and you did. So it was just, I couldn't believe it from there on out. I didn't really consider myself a winner in the past. All I knew is that, I like to build cars and have fun, but I never expected to get as far as I did with that car especially. And it wound up 2 years first place in bracket 3 and going to Bakersfield. And 1 year that I couldn't drive the car because I had a car accident, Greg Shoup drove it, and he was number 1 in the points that year. We went to Bakersfield also. So like I said, it was unbelievable how that worked out. Then you and I had that agreement when you were having the problems with guys buying parts and not working, and they wanted their money back, and you knew that Wes and I were working out of my house doing emissions work and building cars and stuff, and you asked me if I'd take a look at the car, if you could fix it, then fix it. If not, then I'll give the guy his money back. And that's how we really got really close at that time. And then I remember I'd be in the quarterfinals, and you'd walk up and say, give you $100 if you win. I got $100 a couple of times. So it was
Can you
amazing.
give it back? I'm a little short right now. No.
What's that?
I'm a little short right now. Can you give it back? I'm kidding you. So you were enticed to win by the big bucks.
Yeah. And so what happened was, in I think it was 1987, my wife got pregnant with our third one, and that was it for the racing. So we closed it down, and I sold the car to Kid, and he campaigned it for a while, and then I heard it wound up down in Tucson. Two brothers bought it. Dana House came up with a picture of it one day, and it was red and white again, no writing. And he said, "Know this car?" And I go, "That wouldn't be my car, would it?" He goes, "Yep." He says, "These two brothers bought it. They got it in the tens." That was my next move, was to put a bigger engine in and run tens with the car. So, and then, we were back at it racing again, and still playing around, working with cars. I got to work for a couple of people restoring cars. We got
Yeah, you did some. I knew you were doing some car restoration. And
Yep.
Still, your love for cars was still there.
Yep.
So, what? Tell us some of the projects that your favorite. Is there a favorite project you had?
We had this one. I built this one truck. It was a '55 Dodge pickup, and I was working for a gentleman over in Scottsdale. He is a millionaire, and he had a non-emergency medical service, and he hired me to come in and restore his cars. And he had 300 Chryslers. It wasn't my favorite, but he had a lot of old Plymouths and Dodges, flatheads. This was my cup of tea when I was a kid, So he buys this Dodge, and he says, "What do you want to do with it?" I said, "What do you say we do a project?" So we come up, and we decided that we were going to take the body, and we found a Dakota that was the right wheelbase, and we put the body on the Dakota, and we made this Dodge, and it had 3.9 V6. It was we had the emissions tags on it, everything. It even had the catalytic converter, and 5-speed, and so we were campaigning that car at car shows. It won a Best of Show in the trucks at Route 66 Fun Run. And also they did a magazine article over it the one time they ran a Mopar show over in Las Vegas. That was the old track. They didn't even have the new complex yet. And then I did a Henry J, my own car, and we married that body to an '87 Mustang LX, and had that car out to the track a couple of times. And it wasn't a gasser. It looked stock from the outside, and all we did was just put this driveline, the whole body. We just married the two cars, and we had Henry, and then did a lot of Corvettes, a lot of Chevelles and GTOs and stuff like that. And then when I retired from driving, I worked for AutoZone for 18 years. And when I retired, I decided I was going to start doing my own stuff now. So that's what I'm doing. I built, we finished off Henry. I've got a Maverick. I get this '54 Ford that was cloned my father's car. And that's the one we had out at Firebird. I cut a 007 and a perfect light with that car.
You haven't lost the touch.
Never before,
So
had
you
a
have
lot of
Maverick in your
01s
future?
and 02s, but
You have another Maverick in your future?
70 Mustang.
Mustang, okay.
Yep. We're doing a 427 small block for that car. So I'm coming back.
That's awesome.
Yep. And I don't know if you know Paul Lawton.
I don't.
He's
I don't remember. I'm sorry.
His father had a speed shop over in Glendale, and Paul worked for him when he was a kid. Paul is a great fabrication guy. He bought the house next to me, put up a big shop, and he's actually doing fabrication for guys out at the track.
Awesome.
And he's got a couple of Drexes of his own, and he calls me a street squirrel because I drive my car to the track. And I told him I'm going to drive that Mustang out to the track also. You know, I wanted to be an all-around car. So, but
you've had a lot of fun. You've influenced a lot of people. You've had some great people in your life. We miss Mick Garda. He was a great guy. I had some, I worked with him for a little bit in California on a special project he was doing, and he was just a super, super guy.
Yes,
and,
he was.
Another one of those guys with a funny accent, but I don't remember where he was from, but you knew he was there. He was the large and in charge and very smart man. And Wes McGann, Dana House.
Yep.
Greg Shoup used to help me with our race car. Another great guy.
And Greg too. I mean, he just disappeared off the face of the earth. He lives in Fountain Hills now. I'm in touch with him every now and
I
then.
worked a long time for the GM Proving Grounds.
And he was really good.
Yeah.
Wes.
Yeah.
I mean, Greg.
Yeah.
And Wes had a very good reputation also.
Yeah, absolutely. You lined up with some great guys. You always remember your car and Gene Fiore out there, the two Mavericks, and both sponsored by Performance Plus, and that was,
Gene Fiore, and John's talking about Greg Wheeler. Kurt Wheeler.
Yeah.
And Kurt built a roll cage for the Maverick.
Yeah.
And, well, I got to know Gene when I was running the Falcon. And then when I was building the Maverick, we'd get together for lunch every Friday with Ernie downtown. And I was talking about, he had yellow fever, and
And tell everybody the name of your car, your Maverick.
This ain't no bull.
That's right. Ain't no bull.
I figured, like I said, I was always the underdog. And the best thing that I ever got out of winning a race was driving a Ford. That used to just tear people apart. I had a lot of guys that would say to me, why don't you just take a weekend off? But it really was amazing. I never thought that I would be able to, accomplish that,
Well, you've had a good life, and you had your family and everybody along the way, and you've pretty amazing, and you still have the same passion. I hadn't talked to you for a while, and one day I get a call from you, and it's like, oh, Tony Stewart's calling me. Oh, not that Tony Stewart.
And I remember at the end of that conversation, you said, give Leia a hug, and I'm going, what?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. Well, you've always been somebody. You personify a drag racer. I've seen you help people when they have a problem with their cars at the races. Somebody walked up. You're very altruistic. Somebody paid it forward to you and helped you and pointed you in the right direction. And you've helped other people. Even if that person may eventually come back and beat you one time or two, you didn't care because you just love the sport so much,
right?
And you know how important it was you to know. And you that's what part of your legendary life is that you always want to help people, and you're very generous with your time. And we're glad to see you're going to be tearing it up with this Mustang. I can't wait to see it. What color is it going to be?
What's that?
What color is your Mustang?
Blue. It's going to be the Ford Blue.
Okay.
Yep. And then, of course, there's the Tony Stewart deal. And I remember when he first got famous, I come home one day and my mother says to me, you're famous. I go, what are you talking about? I'm famous. She goes, well, this guy Tony Stewart, he's driving Indy cars. And I go, no kidding. So I had a friend that followed open wheel racing when we were kids. His grandfather had his own sprint car. And they would take me to the races. We would go to indoor racing in the wintertime, Island Garden. They were the TQs over there. And then they would take me, we'd go to Danbury, Connecticut, and they had over in Jersey, Teaneck was the mile track where they ran the Indy cars. And so they got to know Tony pretty good. And my friend Jimmy, he's one of the sons. We grew up a year apart. He was best man for my wedding. And he went up to talk to Tony one day, and he says, Tony Stewart lives 4 doors up from me. And he looks like, oh, really? So, and when I was driving the trucks, I would see his race car out, being trailered on the road, and I'd stop, follow the truck in, the truck stop, take out my license, show it to the driver, and he goes, "Yeah," he says, "you're not the only one."
Well, you've got something more in common with him. He spends part of his time, he lives in Lake Havasu now, so he's an part-time Arizonan, so he's trying to move in on your territory. I think you better have a talk with the guy.
Well, it was, I think it was the last time, it was a couple of times before this year, I was out at the track, and Johnny Moto, I had called you one day, and I asked you, I said, "Do you think Johnny Moto would remember me?" And he goes, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure he would." So I was out there and in staging, and I went up to the starter and I said, "Think I can go up and say hello to Johnny Moto?" And he goes, "Sure." He says, "Go right up there, knock on the door, and he'll let you in." So I come in and he goes, "What can I do for you?" And I said, "Can you turn off the microphone?" He goes, "Yeah, okay, come here, what do you want?" So I told him, I says, "I'm Tony Stewart. I'm the guy that had This Ain't No Bull Maverick. Do you remember me?" He goes, "Yeah." He says, "I remember you." And then he clicks the mic on, he's going, "Ladies and gentlemen," announcing me, all that stuff. That was really something.
Yeah.
And then all the people that, remember me from all those years,
Because you're a
Jerry
legend.
Safranic's son,
Or Jeff?
Jeff, he was just a teenager when I used to follow Jerry all the time. We used to compare notes between, his car and mine. And Jeff, I talked to him quite a bit. I'm going to come out and race in one of his events that he holds. And so it's just. And he said to me one time, he says, I tell people I know the real Tony Stewart. I used to race with him. It's really I don't know. It's just nice to know that you were able to accomplish stuff like that.
You've done a great
and
job.
have notoriety.
You've done a great job, and there's so many great people over the years. Like I said, you brought up a lot of great names, and some people aren't here any longer, but they're here in our spirit and in our minds and our hearts. And but your story is great. You were definitely the heavy hitter when you were at it. I never knew you not to do something without thinking you were going to win the race. Your goal was to win, and that passion and desire is awesome.
It was to have fun.
Yeah.
Really, that's the key right there, is to have fun. You get over the fear of that guy next to you, and all you have to do is run your own race. And just take it as it is. I mean, you're going to lose more than you're going to win. And I learned how to lose before I knew how to win.
Well, you've done a great job. We'll be looking for you in your 70 Mustang with the 427 small block in it. And can't wait to see you out the track. And let us know. Please let me know when you go out.
Right.
I definitely want to be there for that.
I also have to mention my girlfriend Nancy now, who we met under unusual circumstances during COVID, and she was working at a horse rescue, and there wasn't much we could do. There wasn't places, go or anything because of COVID. And I said to her, "Well, I don't know what we're going to do, but I'll come out there and help you with the horses." And that's how we got to know one another. And now she's working on cars with me.
So you
Very
got
handy.
working from 1 horsepower to a lot of horsepower. And she got you working from a lot of horsepower to 1 horsepower.
Exactly.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And then I can tell when you're talking to her, a little sparkle in your eye and smile on your face. So it's that's a great story, Tony.
Well, it's an honor to be here. I was very surprised to get that phone call and have you ask me if I want to, be interested in coming to have an interview.
Well,
this is the highlight right here.
Oh, well, thank you. It's an honor to have you here. We appreciate your time. And Tony Stewart, you're an Arizona drag racing legend.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.